Welcome to the Self-Helpful Podcast, where we break down the classic and cutting edge wisdom of self-help to discern how to actually make positive change in our lives. I'm Kevin Miller. In this episode, I'm back with Tim Schurrer to walk through his personal values and motives and habits in these key areas of life fulfillment so we can hear what's driven and does drive him to build winning teams, to promote a secret society, as we talked about in the first show, and design a winning life that fulfills him and so many others. Tim, again, his new book is The Secret Society of Success. Stop chasing the spotlight and learn to enjoy your work and life again. Tim spent a decade working as COO with Donald Miller, launching Storybrand and Business Made Simple. Before that, he worked at Tom's as well as Apple. He is the host of the Build a Winning Team podcast, which you can tune into right there on your little podcast player, where he offers listeners actionable advice as he interviews some of the top leaders in business. And folks, if you find value from this self-helpful podcast, subscribe, leave a rating, and best of all, take something you learned from Tim, like you're going to today here, and share it with somebody else. You can always find me at kevinmiller.co. Next up, the values, motives, and habits of Tim Schurrer. All right, Tim, well, I'm looking forward to this. You said some stuff on our first talk together that I went and noted and thought, okay, I'm going to ask more. I'm going to ask more on that one. Now, I know you from our work together with Donald Miller, who we've had here on the show a couple of times, and know you come from a faith-based perspective. So I want to ask, what are those, when we ask that question, it's one thing to talk about your faith, but to say, spiritually, what are your primary values and motives, and how do you practice those? When I had to do that myself, it didn't come as quickly as I thought it would be. I had to think about that one. So start there.
Faith is a big deal to me. And, if you think about how that plays out, it's trying to live like Jesus did. And what's interesting about this book, The Secret Society of Success, I wrote it in a faith neutral way because having worked with Don, he transitioned from writing Christian memoirs to writing business books.
I know I was part of that transition, man. I started off with Blue Like Jazz. I think the last show we had with him, I said, man, I missed some of that stuff you did before. Yeah.
So I got to, walk through that journey with him, and I just fell in love with the business space. And so I wanted to write with that in mind. And if you really think about it, as I break down, what does it look like to live in the way of the secret society? The foundation really is serve others. And I actually tried to stay away from that phrase as much as I could in the book, just because I think it's lost a little bit of meaning for people.
Agreed.
But instead, I talk about it through the lens of helping others win. Okay. Like that's what serving others is. It's helping others win. And, I talked a little bit about this in our last segment. So Andy Stanley has this phrase, this question that he's asked. Andy Stanley has this question that he asked, which I love. It's, who am I here for? And really that question is, again, serving others, showing up to help somebody else think with others in mind. And so for me, that is just this constant struggle though, because everything in us wants to make it about us, right? Like we wake up in the morning and it's about us. And so I think it actually takes a lot of work to swim upstream and to try to make things about somebody else. Yeah. And so I try to put these little breadcrumbs, these reminders to keep me focused on that. And, when I was running Storybrand, I created this 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and up at the top in big bold letters, I wrote, who am I here for? And below it, I put the names and the pictures of every single person on my team and their families. Because on the days that I would want to, just beeline it to my desk because I had a calendar full of meetings and endless to-do list, I just needed that little reminder to just say, all right, Tim, who are we showing up for today? Because I wanted to have a habit, a practice of really leaning into this idea of how I can come alongside other people and not make it about me all the time.
Man, Tim, we're seconds away from an entire show right there, because maybe it's just where I am right now, because you saying that we just did a show on mental health. And I would say, so here's, maybe I'll just throw out a couple nuggets for folks that when we look at depression and despair and apathy and the things that we're struggling with as a culture, I have found that to be one of the best medications for myself and for others, is just to come back to who am I here for? Because when it's just me, that is the most depressing thing I think I've ever experienced. And I think other people do. So for you to put that out there, I think is worth the price of admission. And just on an interesting side note, I've been experiencing some things with some other people lately. And I wonder if that's what the thing that drives us as much as it does to having pets and kids even, is it's almost forces us to not be all about ourselves. Even at the depth of despair, I got to feed the dog, take it for a walk, or now I've got a child to care for. And it really helps me be there for somebody else. So who am I here for? Man, I don't know if there is bigger medicine, maybe.
It's, I heard an interview with Scooter Braun, and he's the manager to Justin Bieber and just some of the biggest musicians on the planet. And, he talked about how if you were to hear about someone who is a CEO and, they commit suicide, he's like, you hear that, but you're not really surprised. But if you actually hear about someone who just was constantly serving, they worked in a soup kitchen and they committed suicide, he's like, you'd be shocked. And he said that what he has learned is the only way to stay sane, especially in working with these musicians, people that are celebrities at the highest level, he said, the only way to not go crazy is to serve. Wow. And I think that that's true for the people that he works with, but I think it's true for all of us. And, it's a pretty lonely place when we make it all about us, but, we can show up and actually realize that we're a part of a greater whole here. It seems to bring a lot more meaning to our lives when we can stay in that headspace.
Being a part of a greater whole. Tim, as I have restructured this show and the concept of that and talking about values in regards to spirituality, that has been what has primarily come up in what you just said, a faith neutral aspect. So even if somebody does not recognize a certain God or God at all, they wouldn't be on the show if they did not have a bigger view of a perspective of a greater whole that they're a part of.
Yeah. So
thanks for bringing that out. The next one here is relationships, the things that you value, which to a great degree, there's just some overlap in what you just said, serving other people, but for you and the relationship values and how you walk those out, tell me.
Yeah. So I had this dream that I was going to be the next John Mayer. And when I was in college,
I read that in your book.
I started writing songs, and I thought the path for me was, fame. And spoiler alert, that did not happen. But what I've seen in musicians is for them to make money, they got to be gone. I mean, they're on the road. And what's been interesting is I got married, and that even as I had kids, I just started to see my desires change. And what was really attractive in my early 20s of touring and traveling and, all that, my desires have changed. And so for the last 15 years, I have had this motivation to set my life up in a way where when my kid is playing a 4:00 basketball game, I want to be able to be there. And that's largely because my parents were able to show up for me. And I just saw how impactful that was for me. And I just want to be there. And so there's been this filter for me as I think about opportunities and even my profession. Can I make it to a 4:00 basketball game? And so you make decisions. And while I also would love to be a member of the PGA Tour,
we'll get to that.
It's the same kind of thing. You're traveling, you're away from home and family and all that. So I guess I won't go try to make it on the tour. but these are filters for me. And so I actually do keep, I list these values. I then try to orient my life around these values and make decisions according to these values and these filters that I've set up for myself.
You're married, 2 kids. What are the kids' gender ages?
Yeah. So Judson, he's 4.5. And then our daughter, her name's Elle, and she's 2.
Okay. Beautiful. Congratulations.
Every time, most of the time when I say that, people say, "You're in it." Yeah. That's usually what they say. It's like, hey, 4 and a 2, it's full life for sure.
I'll admit, man, I've gone through those ages a lot. So grateful for them. And also good to be in a different chapter now as well. So, man, health and wellness, just the aspects of exercise, diet, nutrition, your personal, physical, and mental capacities. Tell me about what drives you there, what your habits are.
So I really do, saying this even for the second one in a row, I'm thinking about the long game in a lot of things that I do. And my dad died of cancer when he was 59. And I just want to be able to be around for my kids, and I know that there are things that I can do today that improve my chances of being around for longer. And so I'm pretty mindful about what I eat. I feel it when I'm not eating well, and I'm 35 and I'm just starting to get to that age where my body is responding to the food that I eat a lot more than it used to. I used to be able to go crush some burgers and some fries. And now I'm like, I think I'm going to just skip the majority of that. And I'm just going to eat a salad with a side of salmon or whatever. Right. So, I'm paying more attention to some of these things and how it impacts.
Well, I gotta say, my buddy, Randy James, who co-hosts a lot of these shows, he's a medical doctor and functional medicine expert. He would say that is the blessing of pain. It's a bummer you didn't have that pain before, because you should have. Now you've got it and you can wisen up. So there you go.
I probably eat a salad like 2 to 3 days a week now. And Beautiful. It's just like, because I need to. And so I play basketball a couple mornings a week. And, I wake up at 4:45. We play from 5:15 to 6:30. And, it's a bunch of dads that we're trying to go out there, have some fun and try to not get hurt. So that's been really good for me. And we took a couple year break during COVID and just started back in March of 2022. And I just didn't realize how much I missed it. So I really enjoy that just getting out and running, and I feel good. And I use a Whoop, so I track my recovery, my sleep, strain. I mean, it's amazing. So I love that too. Just it brings awareness to what my health metrics are. And what I've learned too is the food that I eat can impact my recovery score on Whoop. Mm-hmm. So I might get the amount of sleep that I need, but I started realizing, oh, wow, I'm getting horrible recovery scores when I had a burger and fries and a beer, that Friday night. And so I've started to make some real diet changes because of just that information. So super helpful.
Well, free advertising. I've done Whoop as well. I did that for quite a while. And the other one, looking at recovery, I took it off while we're talking. I use a Garmin. It does all my, riding and running. It does a lot of stats that I look at every morning. I look at my sleep scores and whatnot. And it does do recovery, but I don't think we usually look at our performance. Back to that aspect that we talked about in the first show. We look at our performance and we don't look at, okay, the big performance requires recovery for the next performance. And I am more aware, even as my performance is high at my age, my recovery takes a little longer and I pay more attention. And so to what you're talking about, I'm a huge fan of the wearable devices that give you stats and data. And I'm not a detailed guy. I'm not a data guy, but the numbers don't lie, and they see what we don't understand. And I put Whoop at the top of the list and the Oura Ring as far as recovery and knowing what's really happening.
And it's interesting because I wake up and the first thing I do is I want to see what my recovery score was. And yesterday it was 52%. And I'm like, it's interesting. Why?
Exactly.
You know, and then I look, okay, my sleep, I got 90% of my sleep performance that I needed. So it must have been diet based. And I'm thinking through, what did I eat that could have impacted it? And, you know, I hate saying this, but ice cream, it hits me more than it used to. And it's such a bummer because now I have a choice. Do I choose to have it knowing what I am? And do I accept my fate, or do I just make another choice? So I'm learning, trying to get a little bit better every day.
But at least it even allows you to make that choice. And there are going to be some days where I'm going, you know what, we're celebrating. I'm eating all the ice cream. I know I'll make up for that, or, you know, I'll try to address that. And I'll need to be a better recovery the next evening as well. But man, I feel you. I feel you on that. And even to looking at the bad scores, and I'm learning more to consider what was the day like before as far as anxiety. How was I worrying about something? Even, and this is one that I'm not usually cognizant of, or I didn't used to be, that maybe I was even just excited. Something good happened. The publisher called and your book's doing great, you know, whatever. And I'm excited, man. It has me going. And you would think that's all a positive. It still takes a toll. It's still, you know, running the body. And so, I mean, I'm with you. Well, on that note of anxiety, the mental health, and more, you know, that we're talking about that more than ever in the culture. And it's gotten me to thinking about, what is the mental state that I want to be at, and how am I fostering that? So the values you have, where do you want to be in your mental health, your mindset, your mental state, and then, what you're doing to help foster that.
There's a guy named Tom House, and he's a coach, pitching coach, was to Nolan Ryan, but now also has worked with Drew Brees and Tom Brady. I mean, it's amazing. But he has a phrase called prehab. And I feel like I'm trying to prehab on some of this stuff. I don't want to have to experience a crash to make changes. And so I go to counseling every 2 weeks, and I feel like I'm surrounded by just really great friends that I feel like I can be honest and vulnerable with. And one thing that's actually been really helpful for me is gratitude. And there's a guy named Larry Sin, who's the godfather of the idea of creating corporate culture. And Larry Sin wrote this book called The Mood Elevator. And he talks about how, you know, we make our best decisions when we're grateful. And so pretty much his whole idea in this book is he has this whole mood elevator and all these different feelings as you're, you know, either high on the mood elevator or low. And, you know, he says we make our best decisions, we're at our best when we're grateful. And in the middle is like curious and interested. So in those moments when you're dealing with a toddler and it's frustrating, I can either go into a mental spiral, go lower on the mood elevator and start getting frustrated and angry, or it starts to change my mind when I'm, you know, curious and interested. I wonder why they're acting this way, which hopefully can bring me up the mood elevator towards gratitude. And so, you know, the other night, my toddler didn't sleep that great. And, you know, there's moments when it is frustrating, but I also try to remind myself what it is that I'm grateful for. And I that next morning just said, what a gift that I get to be here to help my daughter sleep, you know, and that she trusts me and is comfortable trusting me to help her, you know, through even a hard time, like not, you know, sleeping well. So gratitude is a huge thing. And I really do try to keep that top of mind. And I'd say one of my superpowers is optimism and positivity. And so I also realized that my mood impacts a lot of other people. And I have this belief that I can actually change people's behaviors and mindsets. And so I'm going to be the guy who's going to try to make somebody else smile. And, I hope that I continue to be somebody who is like so full of joy and energy that somehow can spill onto other people, and that joy and enthusiasm can, somehow make its way into their day to day. That to me would be like such a gift.
Well, it's working here today. So I can testify to that.
That's like one of the greatest encouragements for me so far, because I was able to narrate my audiobook.
Yeah.
And the compliment that I've received several times is like, I just love his energy. And I'm like, great. That's so great. I'm very encouraged. I'm pumped about that. And so there were so many times reading the audiobook where I just said, I want people to like feel me smiling.
Yeah.
And so I try to bring that for sure.
Well, here, I'll plug that. Go listen to the Build a Winning Team podcast, and you can listen to Tim and get that energy all the time. And man, that line again, Tim, we make our best decisions when we are grateful. That's that takes it out of it's nice to have gratitude. No, it actually serves you best.
Oh yeah.
So
there's this podcast, go listen to. So there's a podcast called How Leaders Lead, and just look for the episode with Larry Sin. And you'll hear about the mood elevator. That guy is so inspirational. He's like 80 something years old, still runs triathlons. It's incredible.
Awesome. And the next one is work, career, and business. And it deserves a call out that for the past, decade or more, I mean, you helped launch Storybrand with Donald Miller, and now more recently, Business Made Simple. And you guys were in the business of helping people with business, with work, career, with business. My dad, Dan Miller, wrote the book, Work You Love. And I know you guys have done some things together. And so this is a big area. So for you personally, then coming out of that, I mean, I know that this is, I would say, more tangible probably for you than other people, that you've given focus to this, of what the values that you have for Tim's work, career, and business, and how you're doing that, especially now as your business evolves. And as you said, you've done some transitioning.
Yeah. So we've just wanted to be people who are always giving more than we ever asked for. Just be people who were just constantly offering and giving value. And so much of what I've learned about this is really this idea of focusing on the process, not the result. Success is in the process. And it's so easy to get caught up in the metrics, revenue, number of employees we have. But I just found that when we focus on, helping somebody else win, it just seemed as though things just somehow worked out for us. And, one thing that we talk a lot about is in marketing, you are filed away in somebody's brain in the Rolodex of a problem that you solve. So you think of your plumber when you have a plumbing issue, right? They are filed away in your brain when you have that particular problem. So in a business, you want to be known for solving a problem. So what we want to be is the medicine when they experience that problem. So in a business, you just want to be in the business of solving problems for people. And what that requires is for you to make them the hero, and for you to come alongside them and help them on whatever journey they're on, bringing your expertise and everything to that. So I really love that idea. If you go solve problems for other people, you think of adding value to them more often than you're, trying to ask and demand money or whatnot. I just feel like if that is your process, that is your rhythm, that is your motivation, I just have to believe that the results, the revenue, all of that will take care of itself.
I don't want people to miss that. as a lifetime entrepreneur, I still grapple with that sometimes, of coming back in my business, in my endeavors, and realizing that I can fall away from answering that question, or making sure that the public is seeing me promote that what am I there to solve? Even this podcast, self-helpful, what am I there? What if we say podcasting at large, go along and look at the categories, and each one solving something. Now, the most popular podcasts are solving probably boredom and the desire just to be entertained. Okay, point taken. And then they're making billions or millions, on doing that. And then what are the other things? And for me to answer what I want to solve, what problem I want to solve for people in this podcast, speaks to how I name it, what definition I give to it, what the tagline, slogan, whatever is, how I start the show off. And man, that's so easy to fall away from and forget in our businesses and in marketing, as you said.
It is. And the reality is, if we go too long without those little reminders, we just default and make it about ourselves. It takes work.
Quit stepping on
to
my
make
toes,
it about
Tim.
somebody else.
I watched you guys, the stuff that you put out with Storybrand on, man, I remember back in the day, and you would do like website audits, and look at one, and Donna would say, this is all about the company. The product service has nothing to do. And he's doing that, and I'm sitting there trying to keep my ego intact and go over my website and go, oh my gosh, I just violated everything. And I've been in this game forever. It pays my bills still most of the time, and yet we do. So thank you for that. Money, finances, wealth. And lately I've even been thinking, actually, it's part of my book, of putting in their possessions, because sometimes we don't bring that into the game. And I'll find somebody who will kind of put off, what the idea of wealth, especially, and what they look at. And yet I'll see some significant life patterns and habits towards possessions that they have that I would put into this category. So I've been playing with that. Haven't officially even brought it in here, but the values you have towards money, finances, wealth, and I'll even put that possessions, and then how you practice those.
So just very practically, we are huge Dave Ramsey fans, and
well, you're in Dave Ramsey land. Doesn't he own Nashville now?
Exactly. So we went through financial peace, and my wife and I got out of debt. Our house is the only debt that we have. And so, we've been people who have tried to spend the money that we have and not use credit cards and things. So that's a huge value foundation for us. But what's interesting, as I'm writing my book, I came across this book that Gretchen Rubin wrote called The Happiness Project.
I'm aware of it, but haven't digged
and
it again.
There's a little section in there that she called Secrets of Adulthood. And she had this list of her secrets, and it just inspired me. And I was holding our daughter for a nap one day, and on my phone, I just started a note and just started typing out, what are my secrets of adulthood? And what started off as kind of a fun little list kind of evolved into a more weighty list of things that I really wanted to teach my kids someday.
Wow.
And here, I'll just kind of read a few of these. Offer grace over guilt. Do things with excellence, and the rest will take care of itself. Gratitude is better than resentment. Distance yourself from drama. Go out of your way to encourage those behind the scenes. Be a firefighter. Run toward the problem. If you have a dream, chase it, and don't let pessimists derail you. Stay out of debt. Try to make it to Augusta the first week of April every year for the Masters. So I kind of just keep going on and on.
Yeah.
But what I thought was interesting, and I talk a little bit about this in the next section of the book, is what was interesting is I never once talked about money. I never wrote make a lot of money. I don't have a problem with it, but it's just not a motivation for me in the way that it is for some people. For a lot of people, building wealth and, creating behaviors and all of that around that is a motivator. It's not for me. So I just think that's interesting. So making that list, those secrets of adulthood, it really just created some themes for me to just show me what I really valued, which, if you really even boil that down a little bit to what I talk about in the book, what you value is another way to just say, this is what success is to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that was pretty interesting as I made that list of 100 things. I just kind of kept going. I wasn't numbering them. And I get to the end and I'd made a list of 100 and not once did I talk about finances, which I thought was pretty interesting.
It's incredibly interesting to look at that and what you value, because this has always been a stumbling block for me. I have some baggage in this area of finances and whatnot, because money in and of itself is not a motivator. But what are my values? Time, flexibility, being present for my family, and being present for myself, activities that I want to do outside of work. Well, if I'm going to have time, then I need money to afford that, or I need less possessions because I won't have the money for that. And so it's showing me you said, what do I value here? And it all comes to play, which is why I've been putting that possessions in there as well.
Yeah.
And you did, I'll make a call out your list. I love that. I was forever impacted eons ago. I don't know when it was published, by H. Jackson Brown and his Life's Little Instruction book. I think it was in the bathroom when I was a kid, maybe. And that's a story that he wrote some stuff to his son, as my memory goes, something like that. And it became this book that sold millions. And so I appreciate what you've done there. Well, the next one, achievements and interests, is one that I am interested in as I've been doing this and hearing what are those things you value, and even into the things that you do for fun and play, the things that inspire you that are more for you. Because we talked about this and so much you're doing for other people, but what is it there? And you've talked about, and I pulled this out of the book. Actually, no, it was in the intake form for doing the show. And I saw some of your regrets and they tipped me off onto some things you were interested in. So you've talked about them since. We've heard that you were a musician, and you got to answer, because I don't know what that means. I don't know if you were playing something, singing something, writing stuff. We've heard about, there's obviously some golf devotion here. We know you watch basketball and play basketball. So tell me more.
Yeah. So, one of my big dreams, I wanted to, be John Mayer. I wrote these songs. I had some on iTunes. So that was a really fun passion for me for a really long time. It's interesting to see how that's just kind of faded for me. I have a guitar in my house and I just don't really even pick it up anymore. I'm not mad at it. I just don't spend any time doing it. And maybe I will later on, but that's a thing that actually was a pretty big part of my life for several years. The things that are interesting to me now, I really love podcasts. If I'm in the car, I choose to do that. I just am constantly consuming, and I read a lot. And I love information. And part of what's been fun about writing a book is being able to curate stories and kind of orchestrate and organize a lot of these different thoughts and ideas, and use all of the podcast quotes and book quotes to kind of put together some kind of message to share with people. So I really love that. What's interesting as I even see that word achievements, what comes to mind for me is, I talk about this in counseling often, trying to find the motivation. I really have a hard time allowing myself to golf and do things like that, because I just feel like I am only as good as what I am delivering and producing and handing in.
Yeah.
So this idea of rest is very hard for me, actually.
Welcome to the club. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
we can get better.
I have a hard time. And I've not resolved that yet, but it's a thing that I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
And there's this song that has kind of been, I've listened to a lot over the last couple of years, called Gyra. And it's this whole idea of like, you're enough, and sometimes I just feel like I am only as good as what I create and produce. And as soon as I stop doing that for somebody, I then lose my value. And as a friend, I'm going to be the one that is giving way more than I ask, because I think probably subconsciously freaked out that the moment that I am no longer useful and valuable to you. Like I'm out. So I'm going to over deliver. And I don't think it comes out like super wonky and it doesn't feel weird, but I am definitely mindful of that. And so it's kind of, Ian Cron talks about with the Enneagram, like what's best about you is what's worst about you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, probably one of my greatest tendencies is how I am so willing to give to other people. And yet then as I think then about my own worth and value, sometimes that's a thing that can, be a tension. It's like, wow, what's the true motivation here? So I think it's good to just be mindful of. And all I can ask for is self-awareness and, trying to get a little bit better. I don't think that there are silver bullets in life or in business. The silver bullet is continuous improvement. And the greatest people that I know, people who have had success at the highest level, they focus on getting 1% better. So yeah. I try not to, make myself feel too bad about some of these realizations or learnings. I just see it as, oh, it's great self-awareness. Now I have something that I can work with and work to improve.
Tim, that, it's interesting coming from your background in Storybrand and the hero aspect, because what you talked about there, I too see a counselor. And that's really where I'm digging in most right now is the glory of me and the death of me being the hero. Mm-hmm. And the question that's put before me right now is, if I'm not the hero, then who am I? Mm-hmm. And in candor, as you said a moment ago, I haven't resolved that. That's in process. And I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that you earlier, and I forgot to address it, that you go to counseling every 2 weeks. And I just want to hit that because we're talking about that more and more. We're about to have another advertiser in that realm, because I'm an advocate too, that we still tend to associate counseling with crisis. And it doesn't sound like that's what you're doing.
Yeah. Prehab.
Okay. We're back
rehab,
there. Yeah.
There's a guy named Stephen Mansfield, and he did an episode with Storybrand several years ago. And he might even have a book with the same title, but it's like 10 Signs of a Leadership Crash or something in that realm. And I hear things like that, and I see news stories of leaders who have had moral failings or whatnot. And I just want to believe that I can chase the biggest things that I can dream up and also have a really healthy marriage, family life, great friendships, good relationship with money and things, and stay healthy, keep spirituality important in my life, have a good mental headspace. I just, each of these little buckets, I don't want to believe the lie that I'm going to fail in some of these things. I actually want to believe that with some intention and some prehab and self-awareness and, God, having my back, that I can actually, continue on. It's not going to be perfect. Like, I also know that challenges come, but it's how we respond to challenges. And so I hope that I can continue to chase down all these things and also be really healthy in a lot of these areas.
That's what this episode is for. That is it's a great ending statement, but I'm going to ask one last question. What are some top John Mayer songs? When I ask that, what's the first thing that pops up? When I saw that, I thought, man, because I'm a fan. Come on, give me a couple.
Oh my gosh. Hang on. Now, the things that pop up for me are like the hits, but yeah. I'm going to tell you, hang on, I'm pulling it up because I want to give you some good answers.
I wouldn't want to be asked it because I don't tend to remember the titles, but man, I'm intrigued with what resonates with people.
So I really like this song called "The Heart of Life."
Okay.
Really good. "Stop This Train."
Yeah.
Is another really great one from that Continuum record that I really like. And There's also a song that I really like from one of his early records. And it's called, hang on, I'm pulling it up because I almost know like track. I'm like, it's track number 4, you know?
That's a true
What is
fan.
this one?
And what are you looking it up on? What's your platform?
I'm on Spotify right now.
Yeah, me too.
Ooh, okay.
I live there.
I really like, there's a song called Home Life. And it just feels, I love home life. I just like the feeling of it. And I like the song Clarity from the Heavier Things record, you know. Anyways, sometimes I don't even a lot of times know what the words are.
Yeah.
I just like how it feels. And
for better or worse, I do too.
Exactly.
Though I'm often grateful when I will pay attention and realize that the feel I liked also contained words that I support. Once in a while it doesn't. So there you go. If you want to know more about Tim, there's your songs you can pull up on John Mayer and understand a little more. Man, just a gift to hear some of the background and to hear your values, man. It's a gift to be privy to. Thank you for your candor. Thank you for your heart and for your time with us today, Tim.
Man, thanks for creating space. You don't get to talk about some of this stuff very often. So it's cool to feel known. I think so many of us want to feel known. And if somehow something that I said is helpful for somebody, you know, maybe it has them think a little differently about one of these things, or maybe it has them calling a counselor. I think if that happens, this is a win for all of us.
In all truth, man, you've benefited me. You've given me things to ponder. I have stuff. I wish you could see. I should send you a screenshot of what I made bold, what I put in blue, the things that are just notes just for me to take and ponder, pursue, and I think take action on of what you shared. So mission accomplished. Cool. Thanks,
man. Grateful. Thank you.